The whole console versus PC debate has become very apparent within the last 5 years, with the release of consoles such as the Xbox Series X and S, the PS5, and now we're getting upcoming consoles such as the PS5 Pro, as well as the Nintendo Switch 2. I switched to PC gaming around 2.5 years ago, and during that time it became very difficult not to grow attached to the whole PC Master Race mindset, because PC gaming truly does live up to the hype, and in this video I'm gonna hopefully point that out to you. The first and simplest reason why you would switch to PC gaming is because there are simply more games over here. With the PlayStation 5, there are around 3,500 video games, and nearly all PlayStation 4 games are backwards compatible. The Xbox Series X and S has around 5,000 games, from not just the Xbox One, but also the 360 and classic Xbox, and there are over 12,000 games on the Nintendo Switch. And this sounds really impressive, but then we look at PC gaming, and there are over 89,000 games on Steam alone, which is just one avenue of PC gaming. Significantly more than double the console games combined. And keep in mind, this doesn't even include things like the Steam Deck, where there are over 26,000 games that are compatible on the fucking thing. And keep in mind, when I say compatible, I of course mean that it has the green tick from Steam, because obviously every game is compatible on the Steam Deck, you just have to do a bit of tinkering to get some of the more demanding games to function. And the reason for this is because console gaming, to put it simply, is very curated. You're only allowed to play the games that Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo deem as being beneficial to their platforms. And if you think I'm lying, take a look at the backwards compatibility scene. Do you like this PlayStation 2 game that you grew up with, or how about PS3 games? No, chances are they're not compatible with the PlayStation 5 Pro. Do you like these really cool Xbox 360 games? Well, you have to hope and pray that it was one of the many games brought back to be backwards compatible for the new consoles. And if you're a Nintendo gamer, well, we all know what Nintendo's like when it comes to game preservation. You either have to eat shit from the jar, or you have to buy a remaster at full price. However, with PC gaming, you don't have to worry about backwards compatibility at all, because PC gaming doesn't have generations. Games don't randomly become obsolete or unplayable on new hardware in 7 years' time. Every game from any era of PC is compatible with every modern PC rig, give or take a couple of minutes of setting it up and maybe downloading an emulator or two for the really old stuff. And even if you're into the more new games, you know, the big fancy console exclusives that they use to entice you to their platforms, well, PC's got you covered there as well. Console manufacturers like to use exclusive games as a selling point to their platform. I mean, why the fuck would they bother innovating and improving their hardware to outperform their competition when they can just lock the newest God of War or Pokemon game to their platform and attract sales that way? Ironically enough, not only does PC have far more games than any console platform just on Steam alone, and therefore many more exclusives than the consoles could ever hope to have. However, more and more exclusives from the consoles are coming to PC, either with day one releases or being released at a later time. Using PlayStation as an example, the new God of War games, the free Insomniac Spider-Man games, the Last of Us games, Ratchet & Clank, Uncharted, and Helldivers are all on PC. And they all look graphically beautiful and run with higher performance metrics than the console. And this is gonna keep happening. More and more console games are coming to the PC. Fuck, even game developers are acknowledging that console gaming is holding back the industry. So yeah, more and more games are gonna come to PC. And even if you don't get the exclusive you want, well, that's what emulation is for. And since emulation is very prevalent on PC, you no longer have to worry about console developers just arbitrarily taking your games away from you for basically no reason whatsoever. The literal definition of anti-consumer. On PC, basically any new or old game from any console or handheld is available and playable at a better resolution and frame rate than the original hardware. By downloading the corresponding emulator and redumping your games onto your device, you basically have free reign over what you can and can't play on your PC. To use me as an example, I have the Dolphin emulator, and I enjoy having games from my childhood available at my fingertips, such as Mario Kart Wii, Super Mario Galaxy, Sonic Colors, Pokemon Battle Revolution, and the Wii port of Sonic Unleashed, in addition to the games I already own on Steam, creating an experience that is literally impossible to find on console. And that's just scratching the surface. If you really wanted to, you could play GameCube, Xbox 360, and Wii U games all on your PC. Or fuck, why not take it one further? Play Nintendo 64, PlayStation 2, and Nintendo Switch games on your PC if you really want to. Assuming that you own and legally obtain the games, there really should be no issue. There's a weird stigmatism floating around the internet about emulation, people claiming that it's piracy. Friendly reminder, this is the definition of piracy, and this is the definition of emulation. Yeah, they're really not the same thing. As long as you behave and don't pirate games, you are free to emulate whatever you want. And since we're on the topic of things being free, let's talk about game prices. The issue with consoles is that they're essentially their own monopolies. I mean, you've already paid the developers for the console or the hardware, and you're essentially at their mercy. If they want to charge you a ludicrous amount of money for new games, you basically have no control over that. And there's no incentive for them not to do that, because who the fuck are they competing with? You can't buy the Nintendo Switch games, or the new ones anyway, on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, so yeah, what's stopping Nintendo from charging you an arm and a leg for these games? Which is all the more fucking frustrating, because one of the reasons people like console gaming, myself included, is because of physical game releases, but with Nintendo charging you like $80, $90 for physical releases in the present day, and then you have PlayStation basically remastering games for over $100, you really have to ask, what's the fucking point anymore? On PC, however, the prices of games are usually reduced due to Steam competing with other sites such as Battle.net for your money. Not to mention, due to the ridiculous number of people who own Steam accounts, it's a smart business practice to reduce the prices of games and give you fantastic deals, because at the end of the day, 20 people purchasing a game for a reduced price will earn Steam more money than 2,000 people who didn't buy the game at all. And with these cheaper games, you can improve them even further with mod support, as the modding community basically takes games that are already great and makes them even better, or they take games that were not so great and actually makes them enjoyable. Do you want to play Marvel's Spider-Man 2 and give Peter fucking wings? Yeah, you can go for it. Do you want to play Left 4 Dead 2 and make your entire team of characters the Simpsons? Yeah, go for it. You can make cosmetic changes, or you can make legitimate quality of life improvements. Take Sonic Unleashed Werehog for example. The combat in the base game is certainly good, but with mods you can turn it into Devil May Cry, turning a combat system that was already great into one that you legitimately would struggle to beat. And speaking of PC features that console gaming cannot even hope to beat, let's talk about graphics settings. When broken games release on the consoles, or when games release that aren't completely well optimized on the consoles, you have two options. You have the performance mode, and you have the graphics mode. And if these options don't work, well, you can just eat shit from a jar and pray that the developers fix the game as soon as possible. With PC gaming, we have graphics settings, and with that, we can tweak each individual aspect of the game as to our heart's content. This not only creates a much more personalized experience, however it also helps, run more demanding games on weaker hardware. Also, funnily enough, the modding community can even create mods that reduce the GPU usage for games or make them less demanding on your RAM, meaning that you can even get mods nowadays that make games run better. But even without mods, games generally run better on PCs anyway. One of the reasons for this is because console gaming is very stagnant. You get a generational refresh or a generational upgrade every few years, or sometimes closer to a decade. However, with PC gaming, new parts are being released basically all the time, because there are many different competitors that are all trying to outperform the other and trying to entice your money. As I mentioned previously, we also have graphics settings, meaning that generally speaking you can get whatever performance you want from any game just by messing around with the settings. But also, it's really not that difficult to outperform the consoles when it comes to running games at a good quality, because the modern consoles just are very disappointing when it comes to this. The Nintendo Switch generally ran games between 30 and 60 FPS, and this seems to be the standard for the, more impressive consoles as well, because whilst yes, they are technically capable of giving you 120 FPS, my golly my gosh, unfortunately this rarely fucking happens because console developers just have their priorities in the wrong place. They prioritize ray tracing and 4K gaming and the best looking graphics possible, even if this has a massive detriment on your total frame rates. Not to mention, we also have things like the PS5 Pro, where you're still not guaranteed 60 FPS at all on that platform, meaning that yes, overall, games will always perform better on PC. But now that we've gone over the main enticing aspects of PC gaming, let's go over a few minor ones, shall we? PC gaming easily has the best controller compatibility of any of the gaming avenues, since literally any of the main console manufacturers' controllers are compatible with PC. Not to mention, you can also use keyboard and mouse if that's to your preference. Paying to play your games online isn't a thing on PC, making it the only one of the main gaming avenues that doesn't require you to do so, meaning that you save quite a lot of money in the long term. PC gaming has the best handheld options with things like the Steam Deck, which is objectively better to the Nintendo Switch in basically every way. You also have things like the ROG Ally, which is an upgrade over the Steam Deck, and of course you have laptops, which are more pricey but generally better. Not only making PC gaming the best for handheld options, but also giving you the most versatile list of options for handheld gaming. With PC gaming, you can make upgrades to your setup as often as you like, because new components release all the time and are generally cheaper than the console upgrades. Because with the consoles, you basically have to buy an entire new fucking piece of hardware in order to actually upgrade the components. Whereas with PC, you don't need to do that, you can just mix and match parts whenever you like. And speaking of things being cheaper, we now need to talk about the elephant in the room, that being the price of entry into PC gaming, as this is such a misconception amongst the console audience. There's this weird idea floating around the internet that you have to spend thousands of pounds on your PC setup in order to get it to match the console's performance, and this couldn't be further from the truth. Especially in the modern day when consoles are coming out costing $700 and they don't even include the fucking kickstand or the disc tray. Sony. But being objective for a second, you can find many pre-built PCs that offer you very good performance for the respective price. Just typing RTX 4060 into Amazon gave me quite a lot of results, and obviously the price varies, but generally speaking, you can get an RTX 4060 PC between the £600 and £900 price bracket, or around $700 to $1,000 US. Also, for anyone wondering, I'll link a video in the description of the sort of performance figures that you can expect from an RTX 4060. Yeah, you'll be pleasantly surprised. And don't get me wrong, this is certainly more expensive than your average console. You know, it's more expensive than the PS5 and Xbox Series X. But at the same time, I can't really see this as being a con of the platform overall. Number one, because this is pre-built PCs we're talking about. Like, you can 100% buy the parts used or buy the parts and assemble it yourself for a much cheaper price. But also, I don't know why people are surprised that PC gaming is more expensive than console gaming, because PC gaming is better than console gaming. It offers you more in return. It offers you more for your money. Of course it's more expensive. However, the most expensive part of PC gaming is buying the rig itself. Sure, you'll save a couple of $100s on the console usually, but when you factor in how expensive games are, how expensive controllers are, as well as the fact that you have to pay a yearly subscription just to play your games online, meanwhile you're still not even guaranteed good performance on the console, yeah, it's cheaper, but it's a case of you get what you pay for. There might have been a time, you know, once upon a time, when PC gaming was so much more expensive than console gaming. However, those days are long gone. The prices of consoles are going up and up, and it really doesn't take much effort to find a pre-built PC that will match or surpass the console's performance. And that's under the assumption that you want to get a PC at all, because again, you could get into the handheld side of things with the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally. You could also go to other websites and try find other PCs that way. Or if you really wanted to, you could buy the individual pieces and, you know, assemble it yourself for a cheaper price. You know, with PC gaming, you have those options available to you. However, the main reason to get into PC gaming, above all else, the main reason why you should switch to this platform is because of all the lies or broken promises that you were promised from these console developers. Let's wind the clocks back 5 years. You know, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, the most powerful consoles ever. You know, they can run games at 120 FPS. Yeah, they can. Only 10% of their fucking libraries can run games at that performance. Gee, don't I feel like I got value for my money? But then a few years later, oh, we got the PS5 Pro, we'll get it right this time, we will definitely give you the performance metrics that you were promised over 4 years ago. We will definitely not let you down. Meanwhile, the PlayStation 5 Pro has so many fucking controversies around it, not only the fucking price, but also just what you're paying for. Oh, the PlayStation 5 Pro will give you 60 FPS in fidelity mode. Yeah, but the graphics are having to be nerfed slightly in order to achieve 60 FPS in fidelity mode. Not to mention that there's articles coming out basically confirming the fact that you aren't guaranteed 60 FPS at all on the PlayStation 5 Pro, meaning that you're spending around $700, possibly more, for 30 FPS or more again. But then we have the recent controversy with the Nintendo Switch 2. On paper at least, it's a massive upgrade over the original Switch. The specs are pretty impressive for a handheld gaming machine. But then you have all of the other bullshit that just sours the experience, such as the price of the games being absolutely absurd, such as the game chat feature, which is literally just a shit version of Discord. Number one, because it's worse, and number two, because you have to pay for it. Like the fact that one of the buttons on the controller is literally useless unless you pay a subscription fee. And like the fact that once again you have to pay to play your games online once again. It ultimately comes down to one thing. Do you want freedom in your hobby, that being PC gaming? Or do you want a more corporatized affair when it comes to your hobby, that being the console side of things? I feel like I've made my point very clear at this point, so with that being said, I thank you all for watching. I'd encourage you to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.